Chapter 5. Dumb Apples. Hearing solid footsteps moving up the stairs, Genesis turned in the chair he was sitting in, watching as a blonde moved back up into the room. Double-taking, Genesis looked down at the Rolex on his wrist and then back up at Cloud. Either Tsang turned into a Minuteman or you didn't get busy in the Forbidden Forest. Cloud narrowed a dark glare at the ex-commander and moved to sit on the bed next to where they had set up the old Shinra laptops. For being nearly 9,000 years old, they were still better technology-wise than the supercomputers of the day. Humans, after the loss of Mako power, had started to de-evolve. So far behind what Shinra had produced, the world had not been prepared for the series of earthquakes that ravaged the planet for the next 100 years. Billions of people died as the quakes caused the continental plates to crack and break apart, creating the land masses that the world knows of today. Those that had survived were forced to start anew, the technology of their ancestors lost. The world was reborn anew, starting once more from the beginning. For nearly 9,000 years, Minerva's chosen weapons walked the earth, fighting battles that threatened to destroy humanity and the planet. During time of peace, Crimson Weapon, Golden Weapon and Chaos would return to a form of suspended animation, awaiting the time when they were needed once more. About 200 years ago, they were reawakened to help fight war after war that threatened to destroy the planet, only now they would not return to suspended animation. Now they had a new task: to watch over Gaia's final weapon. Silver Weapon. Alongside the revival of Silver Weapon, those that had been struck down in their prime were given the chance to be reborn alongside him to fight once more. Only a small handful of them had accepted the goddess' proposal. Now they were simply waiting for their memories to return and their bodies to once more take on the form their souls once resided in. Unlike you, Genesis, I have a little more tact than fucking my partner in the middle of public. Genesis actually flushed some and turned back to the screens. That was one, and it was Sephiroth's fault. Take 2 to Tango, General. Shut it, Chocobo. Snorting, Cloud pulled out the parchment that Tsang had given him only 10 minutes ago and started to leaf through them. What's that? Genesis turned back from the laptop, hearing the rustling of paper. Vincent moved into the room, towel thrown over his head, having just gotten out of a shower. He really was beating himself up for that terrible slip tonight in the Great Hall. He was way off his game. Tsang did our job for us, Cloud said, holding up the papers. Walking over, Vincent plucked the papers from Cloud's hand and sat down in one of the unbroken chairs. Harry James Potter, Sephiroth. Age, 15. Birthday July. Parents Lily and James Potter both deceased. Living with mother's sister. Gryffindor 5th year, prone to breaking school rules and getting in trouble. Average student, grade-wise, but always seems to attract the wrong type of trouble. Extreme hero complex, strong sense of right and wrong. Flipping to the next sheet, he shook his head. Even in this life, Sephiroth lost his parents before he ever knew them. Neville Longbottom. What kind of name is that? Where the hell do these wizards come up with these? Vincent ignored Genesis as Cloud started to laugh. Neville Longbottom, Angel. Age, 15, birthday July, parents Alice and Frank Longbottom, torture to insanity, currently residing in a mental ward at St. Mungo's. Angel. Genesis turned away, his eyes looking at the empty Great Hall. So far it seemed like the past was repeating itself. Living with grandmother. Gryffindor 5th year, timid and shy. Lacks self-confidence and is easily picked on by students and teachers alike. Below average grades but excelled greatly at herbology. Genesis groaned, leaning back in his chair. My friend, the fates are cruel. Both men snickered hearing this. Genesis would tell them stories about Angel and Sephiroth during their days at Shinra, and Angel was well known to be a plant lover, much to Genesis' annoyance. Draco Malfoy. Rufus Shinra. Age, 15, birthday June. Parents Lucius and Narcissa Malfoy, known Death Eaters. Vincent frowned down at the paper. That could mean serious trouble for them if Rufus followed in his new parents' footsteps. Slytherin 5th year prefect, arrogant, cocky, spineless most the time but acts big. Racist and bigoted. Sounds like good old Rufus to me. That was an understatement. Seems like Minerva had thrown Rufus right back into the life he had prior. Ginny Weasley, Cisni. Age, 14, birthday August. Parents Arthur and Molly Weasley, youngest of 7 children, only girl. Gryffindor 4th year, strong-willed, slightly meek towards people above her in age and status. Sharp tongue and sharp wit. Sounds like Cisni. Genesis said. He was the only one out of the 3 that had known Cisni personally, as she had been killed before Meteor. Fred, Zach and George, Reno Weasley, twins, age 17, birthday April 1st. Ironic cause they are both extreme pranksters. The 3 all laughed at Tseng's little side note about the irony of their birthday. Gryffindor 7th years, sarcastic, well-like, largest pranksters Hogwarts had seen since the Marauders, inventors with a scary wit. Reno yes. Zach no. Cloud picked up an old pillow and threw it at the ex-commander. Zach was very intelligent. He grumbled before flopping down on the old mother-eaten bedspread. One more. Luna Lovegood, Elena. Age, 14, birthday September. Parents Xenophilius Lovegood, mother deceased, Ravenclaw 4th year. Spacey, eccentric but very aware of her surrounding and spot things no one would ever suspect or think about. Cloud nodded slightly from his spot on the bed. Yeah. That sounds like a very young Elena. She was always very clumsy as a new Turk and always seemed to get captured easily during the chase for Sephiroth. What Tseng didn't list himself. What a killjoy. Moving over to bed, Genesis collapsed next to Cloud, resting his head on his stomach. Nanaki looked up from his spot on the end of the bed and yawned widely, shaking out his long mane. It should not be long until they awaken. Reaching down, Cloud absently ran his hands through 2 separate red manes. Over their long life the 3 had grown as close as brother, having to rely on each other for protection and sanity. Though with Genesis quoting Loveless all the time, that really tested the sanity portion of it. To say that this day was starting out a lot better than yesterday was an understatement all onto itself. So far this morning was fucking fantastic. No one talked to him. While normally this would piss him off, he didn't mind cause no bitching about the profit. He had some basic sugar in his system and he hadn't had to put his glasses on all morning. Oh, and he had fucked with that horrible toad last night. That was always a huge bonus. When Ron and Hermione had asked about his punishment last night, he has simply shrugged and walked off, smiling knowingly. He wasn't about to tell them that something had happened last night to turn his blood into acid. Hell, he was still trying to figure out exactly how that had happened. At the time he hadn't been too worried about it, but now he was a little disturbed by it. Had he walked through some radioactive waste that he didn't know about? Was he turning into fucking Superman? Or was that he Hulk? Wait, no, that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Shaking his head violently, Harry went back to eating. His mind was going all over the place today and into some pretty disturbing places. Hearing the sound of metal setting itself on the table, Harry looked up, blinking, seeing a can of Mull energy drink set down in front of him. Ron looked up from his breakfast, a dark frown marring his face as he glared darkly at the 2 Slytherins standing behind Hermione. Blaise simply smiled a very small smile as he set a second one down in front of the glowing-eyed Silver General. Malfoy was surprisingly being silent behind him, watching this curiously, silver/blue eyes sliding between Blaise and Harry. Zabini, what the bloody hell are you doing over here? Blaise ignored him, setting a third down in front of Harry, who was now looking like Christmas had come early. Harry, don't even think of drinking those. Hermione frowned, seeing Harry already downing the first one. Don't worry, Granger. They aren't poisoned, and even if they were, his body would kill off any poison. A small secretive smile crossed Blaze's lips before he and the still silent Malfoy walked off back to the Slytherin table. Bloody hell, what did he mean by that? Seeing the two were now looking at him, not lowering the second can from his lips, Harry shrugged, going back to chugging. Frowning, Hermione reached out to pick up the final can that was sitting on the table. Her fingers were just brushing the aluminum when a butter knife was suddenly stabbed into the table only centimeters from the web of her index and middle finger. Screaming, he jerked her hand back, looking at the dull knife that was thrust into the hardwood table with enough force to bend the silver utensil and splinter the table. Panting, Hermione looked up, seeing the darkest glare ever in Harry's eyes, those still cat-slit eyes sending a shiver of pure dread down her spine. "Don't touch!" Harry growled, grabbing the third can and popping it open. Pinning her with another death glare, Harry returned to his liquid crack, ignoring the horrified looks of most his fellow Gryffindors. Finishing it off, he ignored Ron's enraged sputtering as he comforted Hermione, who was crying silently. "I'm heading down to potions." Picking up his bag, he turned and left the hall. Up at the head table, Dumbledore slid a sidelong look at Severus, nodding ever so slightly. It looked like they were going to have to start these new lessons with Harry much sooner than they had originally anticipated. These personality changes had gone from strange to dangerous. They needed to rule out any possibility of Voldemort controlling his mind. The potion classroom was surprisingly quiet as Severus moved in. While normally this would have pleased him greatly, the fact this was the 5th year's made him uneasy. Because of the ministry, all the houses had been combined based upon their year, saying it was more efficient and they could get more time in for the classes that truly mattered. Sweeping into the classroom, his dark brown eyes swept along the students. They were all seated in their normal seats, with the exception of Granger and Weasley, who were sitting well away from Potter, who was surprisingly sat next to Neville, and all staring at Potter's table. Walking up the small aisles between the desks, he came to stop just shy of Potter's table, his eyes instantly falling on exactly what was causing everyone to stop and stare. Sitting innocently on Potter's table was a strange white and purple fruit. It almost appeared to be some form of apple. Sitting next to it just as innocently was a sleek long black feather. Its fibers almost seemed to glow a faint green in the low lights of the potions room. Reaching out, Harry gently picked the long flight feather up, his fingers running almost lovingly over the silken feather. "What is it, Professor?" Hannah asked. Severus shook his head slightly. Honestly, he had no idea what it was. He had never seen a fruit like that before. "Mr. Weasley, go fetch Madam Sprout." "It's a ban or a white?" Startled, Severus turned back, seeing Harry holding the fruit gently in his fingers, those slit eyes regarding it with something akin to fondness. "My friend, your desire is the bringer of life, the gift of the goddess." Neville chuckled softly next to him, rolling his eyes, as did Malfoy and Dean across the room. Blaze looked highly amused from his seat next to Malfoy. Lowering the apple, flashes of an auburn-haired man in a long red leather duster flashed through Harry's mind. Genesis. Neville whipped around, brilliant glowing blue eyes looking at him along with every other eye in the classroom. General. Genesis Rhapsodos. Neville said softly, his fingers plucking the apple from Harry's hands. A vision of a young auburn-haired teen climbing an arch tree covered in these crossed in front of his vision. Bright pale blue eyes smiled down at him as he tossed a ripe apple down to him. "When we get to Midgar and become soldier, I'll share my famous cider with Sephiroth." The young teen leapt down, an arrogant smile firmly in place. "Excited, Angel?" Brilliant dark blue glowing eyes widened as pain ripped through his skull, memories slamming into him all at once. Clutching his head, Neville slowly sank down to the floor before passing out cold on the potions room floor. Glancing up, pale Mako eyes turned, staring almost unseeing in the direction of the castle. "Angel's awake."
Well, I do hope you enjoyed the videos so far and video game content. And don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment down below. And I noticed 40% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel. If you can, please subscribe to the channel. It'll help me and help the channel grow. Until next time, goodbye!